I looked at the star map and back to the mosaics. The map seemed to include a constellation. All I had to do was find out which one and tell the golem to move the telescope to look at it. Well, it was a plan of sorts. The small, boring group of faint stars was the least remarkable of all the constellations. I suppose the small, boring group of faint stars might have been on the map, but if they were, they'd been drawn much brighter than they really were. Swing the telescope around to face the small, boring group of faint stars. The constellation was so disorganized it could match any group of stars. Move the telescope so that I can see Wezon the double-headed kangaroo. The small, boring group of faint stars was the least remarkable of all the constellations. I suppose the small, boring group of faint stars might have been on the map, but if they were, they'd been drawn much brighter than they really were. Swing the telescope around to face the small, boring group of faint stars. The small, boring... I suppose the small... Swing the telescope... The stars seemed to be pointing at the Selachi mausoleum. If the map was right, the jewel was somewhere inside. The huge telescope was too large to be moved by hand, so a nearby golem operated the cranks. The floor of the observatory was decorated with the 64 signs of the zodiac. They were all here: the celestial parsnip, the cow of heaven, the knotted string, even Okjok the salesman. I could tell the golem what to do, but beyond that there wasn't much I could do. The golem didn't say much. It wasn't their way.
I used the astrolabe to see exactly where Two Conquer's map pointed. They seemed to be indicating a grotesque in the entrance chamber. I don't know who thought it was tasteful to make carved statues that were part human and part mythical beast, but frankly I thought they looked awful. I searched the grotesque carefully and concluded that it was a cover stone for something underground. I pushed it, opening up the crypt below. The stale air told me that this chamber hadn't been visited in hundreds of years. In the gloom, I could make out a single sarcophagus. Mundy's coin fitted the indentation perfectly, and with it I could easily turn the peg. There was a faint click, and the sarcophagus opened. Inside the sarcophagus was a suit of armor, grasping a glowing gem that could only be the radiant trapezohedron. I wasn't expecting the armor to burst into life, though.
Thanks a lot. 400 years I wait for you to come and let me out. And the first thing you do is cut my arm off. It'll take ages to sew back on.
I'm sorry. I just sort of acted reflexively.
So you instinctively cut the arm off people you meet?
If they come bursting out of a coffin, yes.
It's a sarcophagus. A very nice sarcophagus. Donated to the Order by some nice people in Jelly Baby.
And you're vitally impaired.
Vitally impaired? What's that supposed to mean? Call a spade a spade. I'm a zombie. Right.
If that's the way you want it, I need that jewel.
I'm sure you do. But first, you must answer the riddle and prove your worth.
The riddle?
Indeed. Are you ready, mortal?
This is ridiculous. I'm in a real hurry and I need that jewel.
Oh, please. I've been here for 400 years. Please let me ask the riddle.
Make it fast.
All right, all right. What is... Oh, bugger. I've forgotten it.
You've forgotten it?
Well, it has been 400 years. You see how good your memory is after 4 centuries. Especially when you've got mice.
Can I have the jewel or not?
No. I have to ask the riddle. How else am I going to know if you're a follower of the dark cults?
Let me get this straight. You can tell if I'm a follower of the dark cults by whether or not I can answer a riddle.
Absolutely.
So how does that work then? Are the forces of darkness incapable of answering riddles?
I'm sure the gods would never allow the unworthy to gain control of this.
Interesting theory. Look, I need that jewel, and you're just going to have to find a way to give it to me.
The Order decided that we'd ask a riddle to determine the worthiness of anyone petitioning for the trapezoid. I have to ask a riddle.
You mentioned the Order.
Yes. The Order of the Sacred Tulip. You must have heard of us.
Let me guess. You went out on rampaging crusades across other people's nations with some spurious religious purpose, and came back having stolen a fortune from so-called inferior nations, and then started getting involved in ecclesiastical politics on the pro...
Those were the days, Yep. You got it in one.
And the Order buried you with the trapezohedron.
That's right. They needed a guardian, and I volunteered.
You volunteered to be buried with the jewel for hundreds of years?
I thought it'd look good on my record.
Can't you just make a riddle up?
Well, there was one specific riddle I was supposed to be asking.
But since you can't remember it, you need a new plan. Why not just make one up?
All right. What is, no. Sorry. I can't do it. My mind's a blank. You know what it's like when you're under pressure to perform. You just can't do it.
The city is going to be destroyed because you don't perform well under pressure. I don't believe this. The golden sword had already caused me a lot of trouble. I had a feeling it was going to cause a lot more before long. Look, I have the golden falchion. Surely that counts for something.
Oh, I knew you had the sword, but that's no help. If you're on the side of darkness and you have the falchion, then I definitely can't give you the jewel.
How did you know I had the sword?
I saw you coming in the jewel.
Really? Did you see anything else?
Oh, I've been watching the progress of the sword since I got here.
In which case you must have seen Mundy hide the sword in the crate, and me recover it from Vault 51.
Yes, I did.
So, you saw me killed by Anu Anu.
Oh, yeah. That big dog creature. How did you survive that, by the way?
Carlotta had turned me into a werewolf.
I thought it might be something like that. They never give you the whole story with those cliffhanger endings. I remember 200 years ago when I saw someone go off the cliff in a cart. Only it turned out I call that cheating.
Anyway, did you see when Anu Anu summoned Nylonathotep?
Oh, I see. That's what the big cosmic horror was then.
What did you think it was?
Well, I thought it might just have been fog. The reception in here isn't very good.
If you saw all that, you must know that I'm not with the forces of darkness.
Hang on. You were there when this cosmic horror was summoned?
Yes.
Then why didn't you stop it?
I was being restrained. Come on, just give me the jewel.
No can do.
You saw me defeat Satrap, wasn't that enough? Didn't you hear what he said?
No sound with the jewel, I'm afraid. You just get pictures.
Do you know what's most ridiculous about this? If I was with the dark sect, I'd just use the sword to kill you, and then just run off with the
You know, that's a very good point.
So I'll tell you what I'll do. Either give me the jewel freely, or I'll pretend I'm with the dark sects and I'll just take it.
You're not leaving me many options.
Jewel, please.
Here you go.
Thank you. And may I say, I hope the next 400 years just fly by. The guardian of the radiant trapezohedron had been in the crypt for centuries. That was a degree of dedication to work which I couldn't quite comprehend. Horst! I was wondering where you had got to.
Then we have been engaged in similar pastimes.
Luton.
Ilsa.
As you can see, I have been forced to take more drastic action. I dislike having to take such radical steps, but since the untimely demise of Mr. Alcali, I no longer have the luxury of observing events from afar.
Let her go, Horst.
Let her go, Mr. Luton? You make it sound as if she is my prisoner. I am merely keeping her well protected against the more hostile elements of this wretched settlement.
Let her go.
That is precisely my intention, Mr. Luton. But first, you must fulfill your agreement with me.
You want the sword.
Indeed. You agreed to bring me the sword, and I'm here to collect.
No deal, Horst. I need the sword to stop Nylonethatep.
Indeed. And what might that be, sir?
It's a creature from the dungeon dimensions, and it's loose in Ankh-Morpork.
That's as maybe. It still doesn't change our agreement. You promised me the sword, sir, and I am here to collect.
If I give you the sword, thousands will die.
Oh, come now. The world is full of people. What are the lives of those insignificant specks compared to our own desires? We, sir, are a breed apart from most people. We see what we want, and we take it. If a few tiny lights have to be extinguished to achieve our goals, then that is unfortunate. But it is of little consequence.
We're not talking about a few lights. We're talking about a few thousand lights. Maybe hundreds of thousands.
Then we will have to learn to live in the dark.
I can't do it, Horst.
Oh dear. I thought you were a man of your word, sir, but it seems I was mistaken. Very well. Then I am forced to take more drastic action. I don't know how much pressure it would take from my fingers to suffocate the young lady here. And I'm not entirely sure that I wouldn't apply slightly too much pressure and snap her spine. However, you have forced me to experiment.
Luton.
All right, Horst. You win. Let her go.
Excellent. I thought you were a man of reason, sir, and I was right. I admire a man who is not so stubborn as to throw away what he values just for his stubborn pride.
You've got what you wanted, now let her go! I took Ilsa back to my office. What other choice did I have? I felt so stupid, giving Horst the sword and staying with Ilsa as the troll disappeared into the night's fog. But even if I'd tried to follow him, the dark magenta stench of Nylonethatep drowned out every other scent in the city. There was nothing I could do. After we'd both calmed down, I told her everything that had happened.
So Satrap was looking for Tukanka's jewel.
That jewel is known as the Radiant Trapezohedron, and I think it can save the city, but I have a nasty suspicion that we need this sword as well.
The radiant trapezohedron. Yes, it never occurred to me that they would be the same. The descriptions of the trapezohedron are vague at best. Satrap must have been trying to immanentize the Garunan Eschaton.
Can you try that again without sneezing?
The Garunan Eschaton is one of the many myths concerning the end of the Discworld. It's very obscure.
What's it about?
It tells how some of the entities from the dungeon dimensions have been trapped around the Discworld. Some in the lost city of Leshp, some in the heart of the Garuna Trench, some in places men don't even have names for. When the Eschaton occurs, they are supposed to be released from their captivity and destroy everything they can get their tentacles on. The usual thing.
Well, Nylanethotep is loose. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is the end of everything. Maybe it's a good time to borrow lots of money.
Luton, I heard you'd been killed. I saw your grave.
I heal quickly.
I left a letter by your graveside.
I know. I saw it.
I wrote it when I had to leave you all those years ago, but I never had the courage to send it to you. I didn't know how to tell you that I was married.
To two conquerors.
Yes, he needs me, Luton. He always did. And in a strange way, I need him too. He gave my life meaning. I had nothing before I met him.
None of that matters anymore.
You never told me how you felt.
What's to tell? I was born when you kissed me, and I died when you left me. I lived a few weeks while you loved me. Of course, I also died when I got stabbed in the back, but you know, that wasn't nearly as painful.
I'm sorry.
I bet you never thought of me as a man who could fall in love.
I never thought about you at all. I couldn't. If I had, it would have driven me mad.
I thought about you every day, until I'd drunk enough to forget. I let my life slide till there was nothing left to live for but bitterness. Well, all that's going to change. I'm going to save this city if I have to die again to do it. And I'm not going to do it for you, or for me, or for the worthless people who live in it. I'm going to do it to prove for once and for all that I'm not the washed-up loser everyone thinks I am. And if it turns out that I am, then everything will get destroyed and no one will know about it. So hey, from where I stand, there's no downside.
What are you going to do?
First of all, we have to find Horst.
How?
I have no idea.